Hey guys, it's Mr. Schmidt here, and in this final video for Unit 1, we're going to look at something called utility maximization. So, utility provides us with our first opportunity to apply what we learned with marginal analysis and do something with it. So we're going to look at the concept of utility to do that. So utility or total utility is the amount of satisfaction earned from doing something some number of times, and we express that in utils or utils. So we say, oh, that activity gained or earned him, or he got from doing it like 60 utils or something. And that may seem weird to you, but it's a way for economists to measure the joy or satisfaction that someone gets out of an activity, because that can tell economists something about what activities people like to do, and so forth, because economics really does have a psychology component to it. Marginal utility is the additional, remember the word marginal means additional, satisfaction from doing something one more time, right? It's the change in total utility, right? Remember, marginal is always the change in the total. So anytime I introduce you to a concept and I say, oh, let's talk about total blank, you can assume there's also going to be a marginal blank, whatever that is, okay? Marginal is the change in the total. So as an example, if we make this little chart here and we say, okay, we've got the number of times we're doing something, the total utility, and the marginal utility. So maybe if I do something one time, the total utility is 18. So utils. So what would the marginal utility be? Well, if I do something 0 times, I can't get any utility or utils out of it. So the change in total utility to get marginal would be 18 minus 0, which is 18. And that's supposed to be an 8. Wow, I'm sorry guys, that bothers me. Let's try that again. 18. There we go, that's better. So let's say we do something a second time, and now after doing something 2 times, our total utility is 30, okay? And so our marginal utility, which is the change in total utility, is 30 minus 18, which is 12. And maybe I do something a third time, and the total utility now is 33 utils after doing it 3 times. Change in total utility is 3 utils, which is the marginal utility. If you notice here, the marginal utility is decreasing the more and more I do an activity. And intuitively, that should make sense because, if you think about eating a pizza, right? The first slice of pizza you eat tastes really, really good, right? But as you start eating more and more slices, that next slice is going to get you less and less satisfaction until you just don't want to eat any more pizza. This is the idea of the law of diminishing marginal utility. It's the idea that as something is done more and more, the additional satisfaction, the marginal utility, begins to decrease, right? People derive less satisfaction as they do things more and more and more in a row because it gets old or it gets tiring or it's not as useful to them, whatever the case may be. This is a very important rule, and it's something we're going to come back to when we talk about the behavior of firms later on in the course. But of course, the title of this video is Utility Maximization, which means getting the most satisfaction out of whatever it is we're doing. So how do economists look at this? Well, let's do an example. So let's say you're deciding that you want to go, to the movies, and you're also thinking about go-karting, okay? And you want to do some of both, but you're not sure how much of each you should do to maximize your utility. And so we're going to say that each movie costs $10, and go-karting is going to cost you $5 per time that you are going go-karting, okay? And so the question is, how many times of each of those things should we do in order to maximize our utility? Well, one thing that the question has to give you, and I have to give you here, is how much money you can spend, right? Because if your budget's unlimited, then you just keep spending your money until you get tired of it. But with a budget, that kind of puts a constraint on this. So we're going to say you have a budget of $40. So how do we figure this out? Well, we can't yet until we're given a very valuable piece of information, which is how much marginal utility we get each additional time we go to the movies and each additional time we go go-karting. And it kind of, what we're really trying to get at here is what's called the utility, and this is very important. It's the utility maximization rule, okay? And so basically this rule tells us how do we determine how much of two different activities we should do to maximize our total utility. And the rule is that the margin utility of the first thing we're doing, X, divided by the cost of it, the price, should be equal to the marginal utility of the second good or thing we're doing divided by its price. In other words, the marginal utility per dollar, which is what this means, okay, this is MU per dollar spent on both goods, should be the same. If that's the case, we are maximizing our utility. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and do an example. And this is going to take a little bit of setup here. So kind of follow along with me because I chose not to go ahead and put this up ahead of time. So I'm kind of drawing it as we do it here. So, if you need to pause the video as I'm doing this so that you have what you need, you can do that. So this will probably be probably one of the longest videos we've had so far, but that's okay. And then we've got MU for, we're just going to call it carts for go-karting. And then the margin utility per dollar spent, okay? And then we will say, this is the first time we go, this is the second time we go, this is the third time we go, and then the fourth time we go. And the margin utility for movies goes from 30 to 20, oh my gosh, sorry guys, 20, 10, and then 5. So you notice diminishing margin utility. The more movies I see, the less I'm going to enjoy them in a row. 10, 5, 2, and 1. So the first thing we need to do, remember, the utility maximization rule is comparing the margin utility per dollar spent on both goods. So we need to find that and then compare them and see where they're equal. So we need to calculate that first. Now, if you remember, I told you that the price of a movie ticket is $10 and the price of go-karting is $5. So basically, we're going to take each of our margin utilities and divide them by 10 for movies. And so we end up getting 3, 2, 1, and a half. Okay? And that's expressed in utils. So 3 utils per dollar, 2 utils per dollar. You can say utils or utils. 1 util per dollar, a half a util per dollar. And then over here, we divide by 5. So 2, 1, 2/5, 1/5. Okay? So those are our margin utilities per dollar spent on both goods. And now we need to see where they're equal, because where they are equal is going to tell us how many times we should do each of those activities. The problem here, if you're paying close attention, is that this happens in 2 spots. We have this spot where when we're going once go-karting and twice for movies, where we have the MU per dollars being equal. And then we have the same here at 1 and 1. So the question is, how do we determine which of these two we should do, right? Because it's not necessarily, you might be thinking, oh, just do the most of both. But if that may not be the answer here. And the reason why it may not be the answer here is because we have a limited budget, right? Remember, from the previous slide, I said our budget's $40. So if we go over $40, that's a problem. And if we don't end up spending all of our money, that's also a problem if we could have spent more of it and not go over. So how do we determine which is which? Well, we look at each case. So let's start by looking at what I'm going to call the red case because I circled the 2 MU per dollars in red. So we have go-karting once, right? So that cost me $5. And then we are going to the movies twice, and that's going to cost me $20 because each movie ticket is $10. And so if I do the red option, I end up spending $25. So that could be the answer, 1 go-karting trip, 2 movie tickets. But let's look at the blue option just to be safe, because if it's better, then we should do that one, right? Because our total utility will be higher. So if I go to the go-karting twice, that's 5 times 10, which is $10. Plus, if I go get 3 movie tickets, that's 10 times 3, which is $30. And would you look at that? We spent all our money. So the answer is we should go go-karting twice, and we should go get 3 movie tickets. Okay? This is a skill that, just like with comparative advantage that we've done previously, you got to practice doing it. So what are the steps? The steps are finding marginal utility, because sometimes they'll give you total utility, then you got to go calculate marginal utility. Then find your marginal utility per dollar spent for both goods at each of the number of times you're doing the activity. And then look at where the marginal utility per dollar spent are equal. Oftentimes, you're going to have multiple spots where they're equal. You then calculate how much you're spending at each of those combinations. And whichever combination spends all your money will be the answer. I have never encountered a question on an AP exam where you are spending less than all of your money and that's the answer. Usually you're always spending exactly what you have. Okay? The last thing I want to talk about here, going back to the utility maximization rule, is sometimes they'll give you the MU per dollars. They'll say, okay, for good X, the MU per dollar is just 6 utils, and the MU per dollar for Y is 7. And then they're going to ask you, how would you advise this person in changing how much money they're spending on each good? And what you always tell them is, you want to spend more money on what's giving you more utility per dollar, right? If something's giving me more satisfaction, I should spend more money on it, right? So you would increase your purchases of Y, and similarly, you would decrease your purchases of X because it's giving you less marginal utility per dollar. And as you do that, that's going to bring those two fractions into balance and get you to that maximum utility. So my advice, again, as we go back to the chart here, is first of all, I recommend rewatching what we did there. Make sure you understand. If you have questions, ask those questions to me, however you want to get a hold of me. I encourage you to do more and more practice. I'll have practice available for you. This is a skill you will definitely see on exams in my class as well as on the AP exam. So that's all for this video on utility maximization. Until next time, have a great day.